You're watching AWB TV. Welcome to Capital Focus. A closer look at the issues that are most relevant to Washington employers.
Hello, I'm Dave Maston, and this is Capital Focus, where we bring you the highlights of the 2021 legislative session. So let's jump right into the top news. Restaurants, fitness centers, bowling alleys, and other businesses can reopen for indoor service at 25% capacity in 7 counties this week. Governor Jay Inslee announced the easing of COVID-19 restrictions last week, saying we've made progress in bringing down COVID activity, and there are promising signs we're headed in the right direction. That's good news for some, but most of the state will remain in Phase 1 for the time being. The changes apply only to the Puget Sound region, plus Grays Harbor, Lewis, Pacific, and Thurston counties. AWB welcomed these changes, but called on the state to provide more clarity about the pathway to reopening. A bill that would address the big unemployment insurance tax increases has passed the legislature and is now on its way to the governor's desk. The pandemic and resulting economic shutdown fueled historic levels of unemployment and payouts from the State Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. As a result, employers face a massive tax increase to replenish that fund. The increases on average are in the neighborhood of 500% per employee, with some employers facing increases of over 1,000%. The bill will help employers by spreading out this tax increase over a longer period of time. But even with this bill, employers will still be paying more taxes, on average about 100% more per employee. The bill is another step in the right direction, but there's a lot more to be done. In addition to the unemployment insurance bill, Democrats and Republicans have both released plans to boost economic recovery from the pandemic. The plans all use federal COVID relief funds and share some common elements like rental support for housing providers, grants to small businesses, additional funding for schools, and COVID testing. An economic development proposal is moving through the Senate. It allows tax increment financing at the local level. Now, this is an innovative way to help fund public improvement projects like roads, utilities, and broadband. This proposal is an important part of AWB's recovery agenda, and our tax expert, Tommy Gantz, testified in support during the committee hearing. Speaking of taxes, Senate Bill 5149 will add a new tax on individual health insurance. If approved, it would drive up costs on health care by over $200 million per year. AWB healthcare expert Amy Anderson testified against the bill in committee. To learn more and get involved, contact Amy at amya@awb.org. Up next, some Washington business leaders say the key to jumpstarting our economy starts with our roads and bridges. We'll be right back.
We can fly where you want to, we can leave your house behind. But if your friends don't mask, and why don't they mask? Well, they won't fly this airline.
You can fly if you want to, cause we do safety right. We have air that's clean and disinfectant machines zapping germs like an arcade space fight. And we dance to the dance, do the dance. Everybody wash some hands.
Do the dance, while always wearing a mask. Do the dance, do the dance.
No, seriously, please wash your hands.
Do the dance,
Have the filters cleaning commence.
Alaska Safety Dance. Alaska Safety Dance. Alaska Safety Dance.
Welcome back to Capital Focus. And now, the close-up.
Welcome back. I'm Dave Maston. Washington employers need good roads and bridges and easy access to our mini ports to move our products to market. across the state, across the country, and across the world. To make that happen, infrastructure is critical, and our infrastructure needs some serious attention. Employers are looking to our legislators to address this and dial up our state's recovery plan.
Good infrastructure is critical for a strong economy and can be a first step toward economic recovery from the damaging impacts of the COVID-19 response. But our roads, bridges, and ports get average grades at best. Overall, a C from the American Society of Civil Engineers.
Our system overall has some good spots, but we also have a lot of work and we need to put in some more care and attention to the system.
With state and federal officials seriously discussing infrastructure investments, it's important for the business community to be ready. Together, national and state funding for infrastructure upgrades will result in better roads, bridges, airports, and seaports, an overall boost to our state's supply chain and the economy.
You add infrastructure spending to the budget. Every additional dollar invested creates an outgrowth of about $3.70 in economic growth over a 20-year period. We believe that would add about $5.9 trillion in gross domestic product over that time.
In 2017 and 2019, AWB partnered with cities, counties, and ports to study and outline where our most critical improvements were needed. Some $222 billion in infrastructure needs. Things like a new I-5 bridge in Vancouver, resurfacing local roadways, and billions to modernize our region's airports. These and many other projects would create more than 700,000 jobs, keep our supply chain humming, and give an overall boost to our economy.
Building transportation infrastructure puts our neighbors, our family, and our friends to work. So literally every part of the transportation system is a step towards economic recovery.
Both Congress and the Washington Legislature are considering major infrastructure and transportation packages this year. Senator Steve Hobbs and Representative Jake Fye, both chairs of the State House and Senate Transportation Committees, have submitted their proposals.
I, for one, am excited about where the conversation is going with regards to transportation this year, and I look forward to continuing that dialogue as we look at how we invest in the transportation system of the future.
Now is the time to invest in infrastructure to jumpstart the economy, especially as we're coming out of the pandemic.
AWB's Transportation Committee is following this issue, and your voice can make a difference. To learn more, contact Mike E. at awb.org.
That was AWB's Mike Ennis. Mike, thank you for joining us today. Infrastructure, an important part of the rebound and recovery effort here in the state of Washington.
Thanks, Dave. Smart infrastructure investments will help a lot. Here to help us explore solutions, I'm joined by Senator Steve Hobbs, Chair of the Senate Transportation Committee. Chairman Hobbs, welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
Senator, you recently released your own version of a statewide transportation package. Could you tell us a little bit about what's in it and lay out a timeline?
Certainly. So it's Forward Washington. It's the same transportation infrastructure package that I've ran through the last 2 years now. And really it's an attempt to kind of get a hold of this carbon argument that we've had. There's a lot of carbon proposals out there, and a lot of them don't fund transportation. And as you know, Mike, and your membership, the AWB, with the economic downturn, the COVID, hitting a lot of our businesses, now's the time to push out a transportation package like this. Forward Washington is a recovery package, it's an infrastructure package, it's a jobs package, and it's an environmental package. And really what we do is we try to take in part of that carbon pricing system, whether it's a cap and invest or a carbon fee, and transportation takes their share of it because, as you know, transportation does put out a lot of carbon. And so that money rightly should go back into transportation and in infrastructure. And using a lot of input from both your membership and communities around the state of Washington, we've put together a plan that encompasses a preservation piece, a piece of new investment in terms of interchanges and bridges and all those things that in the transportation package. But also there's a piece, a multimodal piece, and a piece that deals with carbon reduction, electrification of our highways so we can get electric vehicles on there, electric ferries, building new ferry systems, a lot of multimodal. And that's basically encompasses what our transportation package does.
Great, thank you. The pressures on the transportation budget this year include the impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic. If the legislature isn't able to pull together a revenue package this year, do you estimate there'll be any further impacts on projects that have been already funded?
Well, we're already receiving pressure right now because we have the injunction from the U.S. Supreme Court on all the culverts that we have to do. So that we can't get away from that. We got to pay for that. Well, how do you do that? Especially in economic downturn. Well, you saw some of the methods from the governor's budget they put out, but trying to move some Connecting Washington money. Well, if you move Connecting Washington money that was earmarked for Connecting Washington projects, guess what happens? Those projects are delayed. And not only that, we have a close to $10 billion backlog of preservation that we need to do, that we are behind on.
Chairman Hobbs, thanks for your insights and joining us today, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on your show.
Dave, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate having the senator give us an update on his package. Up next, we check in with his counterpart in the House. Stay with us.
Washington has always been known as a state of makers, trailblazers, innovators, entrepreneurs. Now, as we recover from unprecedented challenges brought about by a pandemic, we want to build our economy back better. The AWB Institute looks forward to shaping this renewal with Washington in the making. This effort puts a focus on new innovations and collaborations in infrastructure, workforce, business climate, and other strategies designed to grow prosperity in every corner of our state. It also features economic data both at the state and county level to support local decision-making and measure our collective efforts. Join us as we work to make Washington stronger. Visit WashingtonInTheMaking.org today to learn more.
Welcome back. This week we're highlighting transportation, and we're joined again by Mike Ennis. Mike, what's next on the schedule?
Thanks, Dave. There's been a lot of discussion in the House about transportation packages this year as well. I'm joined now by Representative Jake Fye, Chair of the House Transportation Committee. Chairman Fye, welcome to Capitol Focus.
Great to be with you.
You recently released your own version of a statewide transportation proposal. Can you tell us a little bit about what's in it and perhaps lay out a timeline?
Sure. This proposal is based on 90 listening sessions that we did with stakeholders throughout the state of Washington the last 4 or 5 months. It is a large proposal, but that's because it addresses very significant needs that we have right now. It's a 16-year project schedule with over $26 billion. It addresses in a very meaningful way preservation and maintenance, as well as projects, and moves us in a direction of keeping up with our preservation and going forward. Also does some good work, I believe, with multimodal investments as well, transit, bike and pedestrian programs. It also fully funds state share is likely to be for the Columbia River Bridge. And it also addresses the needed ferry vessel replacement and electrification. It costs a lot because we haven't been making the investments on an ongoing basis, and it's kind of caught up with us now.
Yeah, very good. So the pressures on the transportation budget this year include the impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic. If the legislature isn't able to pull together a revenue package this year, do you estimate there'll be any further impacts on projects that have already been funded?
Yes, I do, because we have a legal obligation with respect to the U.S. Supreme Court ruling on fish passage, which requires us to make over a $3 billion investment over 10 years. And the governor's requested over $700 million for this coming biennium, which we don't have the revenue for. So we need to fill that gap. along with the reduced revenues that affect all of our systems, from fuel tax to tolling to ferry ridership, and we need to plug those holes. And really the only way to do that, I mean, we'll do our best in making other cuts, but the only meaningful way that you can use to do that is through delaying current projects and connecting Washington from the 2015 package.
Yeah, sounds like a very interesting year. Chairman Fye, thank you for your insights and for joining us today. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Dave, back to you.
Mike, sounds like we've got two pretty bold packages on transportation. Just wondering if the legislature doesn't pass a large package, a lot of employers are talking about, at the very least, can they do something on maintenance and preservation, additional support for that? Is that a possibility?
Thanks, Dave. Great question. The Washington State Department of Transportation estimates that we have about $8.1 billion in unfunded preservation needs in this state. That's a significant amount and goes beyond the capability of the biennial transportation budget. I think legislators would be able to fund a little bit towards that, filling that gap, but certainly not anywhere close to the $8.1 billion, not to mention the culvert obligations that we're under too. So without an additional revenue package, it's going to be very difficult for lawmakers to fund the needs that we currently have in this state.
Okay, so it's kind of a you got to go big or go home scenario that we're facing.
Unfortunately, that's the case. Yes, we've significantly underfunded preservation in this state for a long number of years, and it's time that we need to close that gap.
Okay, well, hey, thank you for the update. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Dave.
Coming up next on Capital Focus, one of our partners is 350 miles away, but has never been more connected to the Capitol. We'll tell you how when we come back.
Olympia works to alleviate poverty and promote gender equality. We do that through the fair trade of sustainable resources in West Africa.
Private enterprise alleviates poverty.
Using a business to make money to help other people.
Our mission is heavily impacted by excessive regulations or taxation. And when the business is difficult, it means that you can't grow, and you can't grow, it means you can't hire people. We believe that every human being deserves to have an opportunity.
At Travel Cheer, we do camp chairs, and we're all about getting people outside and making their experience more enjoyable and comfortable. We really want to take care of our staff, and we want a good work-life balance, and part of that for us was being able to offer them health care. By far, AWB offered much better health insurance through Primera than the other companies did, and at a better rate.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Dave Maston. In 2014, AWB pulled together a handful of chambers of commerce to create a new statewide partnership to support economic prosperity. Today, that's the AWB Grassroots Alliance, and it continues to grow. 93 local chambers of commerce in every corner of the state. Here to tell us more is AWB's Director of Strategic Engagement, Drew Garson. Drew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. It's great to be here.
I hear we're going to learn a little bit about Asotin County today.
We are. We're going to be talking with Kristin Kemak from the far southeastern corner of our state. And joining us right now is Kristin, President and CEO of the Lewis-Clark Valley Chamber of Commerce. So Kristin, hello and welcome to Capital Focus.
Thanks, Drew. It's great to be here to talk to you a little bit about commerce in Eastern Washington.
Great, and we're looking forward to it. You know, Kristin, Washington's economy is very diverse, and our communities have been impacted differently by the pandemic. So how are things going in the Lewis and Clark Valley?
I would say compared to many other areas in the state, Asotin County has fared a bit better. Many of our businesses, including hospitality and restaurants, have certainly had some tough times, but most have been able to be flexible and have found a way to either squeak by or do well in some cases.
That's great. That's great. And your chamber is also unique because it serves both Washington and Idaho communities. You've got Clarkston in Washington State and Lewiston in Idaho. Have you noticed any differences between the communities in the economic recovery activity?
Definitely. So Idaho is much more open than Clarkston certainly is. And so that's created some competitive challenges for a lot of our businesses. For instance, if somebody wanted to go out and have a sit-down dinner at a restaurant, all they have to do is cross the river and go to pick any restaurant in Idaho. And so we've been trying to work with a lot of our restaurants who don't have curbside or who do have curbside and making sure we're doing our best to help them promote their activities.
That's great. Really interesting, too, how those dynamics are at play. So with these dynamics at play that I just mentioned, what are 3 things that the Washington Legislature could do to help in the recovery?
I think they need to work hard to find a way to get vaccines out as fast as humanly possible. Herd immunity is going to be the key. We need to supply specific relief efforts to businesses that are hurting most, like the restaurants that don't have takeout or curbside abilities. And of course, don't forget about the people of Eastern Washington. Our population is smaller than King County, which means more can be done here faster and cheaper.
So Kristin, finally, how would you say the vaccine rollout is going in your community?
At this time, we only have 1 vaccine site for the general population who qualify to receive it. And so far, we've administered over 1,540 vaccines, but we do have 1,000 people on the waiting list. A good note is that over 300 people have already had their 2nd dose, and we are giving out between 700 and 900 shots per week. Another highlight is that most of the patients in our nursing home and long-care term facilities have already received their 1st vaccine, and they'll be getting their 2nd dose early in February. However, one of the challenges that our community is facing is that fewer people are getting the vaccine than we would have hoped for.
Well, we definitely hope that the people that want the vaccine can get the vaccine. And we're really glad to hear about the progress that's being made in your community. So once again, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Drew.
And we really appreciate your partnership and all of your work that you're doing to help Southeastern Washington succeed. So Dave, back to you.
Thank you, Drew. It's interesting to hear about a community that's on the state line, right? So restaurants are opening up on one side, and on the other side they're not able to, and just how that's got to create a lot of difficulties in that valley.
It's definitely a challenging environment to operate in when you've got these conflicting mandates going on in your communities. But as we're hearing from Kristin, they're managing through, and hopefully soon they'll be open up for business and ready to go.
Yeah, very good, very good. Let's take a quick look at the Awb Events Calendar. Starting February 10th, our popular HR and employment law webinar series kicks off again. This is a 6-part series, and it's like having a team of top Washington employment law attorneys right there with you, supporting your success in 2021. And please note, there are continuing education credits for this webinar. On February 18th, we bring another installment of our ongoing Vaccine Update webinar series. This one starts at 2 p.m. and runs to 3:30. It takes a good look at the legality of mandatory and voluntary vaccination programs. And down the road a little bit, we have our spring meeting. So please circle May 12th, at least for now, and we'll have more information later. To get updates on all of our events, check out awb.org/events. Tonight we close with some good news from the Walla Walla High School Blue Devils. The Speech and Debate Club continue to compete during this pandemic. The Blue Devils took first place at the December Dash Speech and Debate Virtual Tournament. Club President Jacob Rose told the local paper, the Walla Walla Union Bulletin, his work is focused on improving civics and government education in our state. Maybe he'll run for the legislature someday. In any event, there is no doubt that his parents Dave and Chi and his big brother Josh are all pretty proud of him. This is AWB's Capital Focus. I'm Dave Maston. Be safe, go Wahai Blue Devils. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching AWB TV.